All right, good morning. Hey, everyone. Alex here for Comp 1500. I'm doing speech number 4, which is the informative speech. And I chose a complex, poignant, and socially relevant topic, and that's the civil war in Yemen. Um, so we're going to we only have 5 minutes here. We could talk for hours on this crisis. But I'm only going to talk about the wave tops, just about the key milestones here. Um, so it spawns back to 2011 when the existing president Abdur Mansur Hadi was in power, and he was replaced by an incumbent, and he didn't like that, people didn't like that, and there were some religious problems with the incumbent leader as well, and a civil war broke out. So the existing army, the existing Yemeni army turned into the largely popular group we all hear about called the Houthi rebels. So the Houthi rebels created a fracture in the country, divided in literally like geographic half, and the eastern side of the country was controlled by the Houthis. They took the capital of Sana'a, and then they went down to the port of Yanbu, which is south, and then their winds of plague spread to the west of the country, and it ended up breaking the entire country into civil war. 85% of the country was affected. Some 85 million people were displaced by the violence. Not only that, created this hotbed for terrorism where the Houthis and the regional conflict between Saudi Arabia and UAE and the armies there of the nation states, it created this hot ground for terrorism. So Al Qaeda started to sell up, and that's when the U.S. got involved and Great Britain got involved, and they started doing drone strikes. Um, so it was pretty big conflict there for a while. It's kind of slowed down, but the Houthis are still an existing thing. They're still a problem. They're still attacking Saudi Arabia, and the political proxies behind them are still in place. But before we jump into the proxies, I'll talk about the Sunni and the Shia, the religious backing, and that's where the genesis of this issue comes from. So in the Muslim religion, there are Sunnis and there are Shias, and there are religious minority groups that believe completely different things. Shias are more disciplined or religiously zealed in their beliefs, and the Shia are a little bit more. They're still conservative, but they're a little bit more liberal in their ways. Like they let women not wear hijabs, and they can let women work and drive. Things that like modern Western societies more resemble. They're still kind of stuck in their religious sentiments, but that is what it is. And so we'll look at the slide here. The conflict in Yemen is widely seen as a proxy war between Yemen and its neighbors Iran and Saudi Arabia. The Shia, this is important, the Shia ruled Iranian government is backing the Houthi rebels, who are also Shia. So we see this Shia alliance, right? Um, and the Sunni ruled Saudi Arabia is backing President Hani in Yemen. So he's like the incumbent who is trying to control this idea of the nation state of Yemen. And they're both Sunnis. And so those are the two political sides. The Saudi government is concerned with the growing trend of Iranian influence causing issues in their completely sovereign country. So Saudi Arabia is a huge oil-rich nation, and they don't necessarily have to they shouldn't have to deal with all of these problems that are proliferating from Yemen and from Iran. That's Saudi Arabia is a first world nation, or they have all the frameworks of a prosperous society, despite all of their social retrogressive programs, or not programs, but their ideologies, and how they treat women, and how the whole thing about them killing a journalist, Jamal Khashoggi. We'll overlook that. Largely, Saudi Arabia is a prosperous sovereign nation that shouldn't have to deal with all this warfare stuff. So they typically get really outraged with all this stuff. Um, but yeah, so that's the framework, and then we look at the map in the center of the presentation, and you can see the force flow, not really the force flow, but how all this stuff comes in. And so on the slide too, things have kind of reached a fever pitch, and things have left the proxy, so to speak, and they have kind of borderline the overt. And this is just me here talking, but so in September of 2019, this year, a crazy attack happened in Saudi Arabia, which um, there were, several drones and several land attack cruise missiles launched at a oil field in Khurais that's owned by Saudi Aramco. Iran blamed the Houthi-backed rebels on this. They said that the LACMs and the counter or the UAS came from Yemen and went north through the country, but through forensic examination and through just plain physics of like how far these airframes and these missiles could actually reach, it was determined that they actually came from Iran itself. So it was an attack of a nation state to another nation state, and so things, although the humanitarian crisis has shrunken a little bit, uh, it's almost at a fever pitch of this whole time, and the region is kind of a powder keg right now. It's interesting times over there, and I did some research. I'll try to close up here in the last 30 seconds. The Saudi-led, well, basically, I will go and read word for word my citations, but terrorism's bad. It's bad for the economy. It's bad for people, and it should be stopped. And yeah, that's the once around the world for the crisis in Yemen. Thank you all, and have a good weekend.